what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris, and today I'm back with another video here. The Flyers, they lose again. Lose both games this weekend. Not ideal. You know, when you look at the weekend and you look at everything yesterday against the Rangers, they could not buy a goal. And today against the Penguins, they could not buy a save. Cal Petersen was atrocious. And I am, I'm not the guy that really tries to hammer it in on Petersen or anything like that, but he was bad, and he was not good today. It's just unfortunate. I mean, you lose Drysdale. Really hasn't been, any really update on him up until this point. I'm still trying to see if there's anything from the Flyers, or it hasn't been much on Drysdale. He's hurt. I mean, he gets hit with the shoulder, and obviously that's been a problem. He had the torn labrum before with Anaheim and missed pretty much all of last year because of that. So that's great, right? It's just fantastic. So Konechny's out, then Forster blocks a shot in the third period, and that didn't look good either. And I'm just like, what now? Now the injuries want to pile up, right? Because that's just how it's going to go. So they go 12-6. Lixel comes in. Tippett, Frost, Forster, Farabee, Couturier, Atkinson, Cates, Paling, Hathaway, Delorier, Lawton, and Lixel. Defense, York, Sanheim, Sealer, Walker, Stahl with Drysdale, and then, like I mentioned, Petersen was in net. I didn't like the Flyers' first period. They scored first, but they didn't really generate much of anything. I have notes written down from this, and the frustrating part of the whole thing is that when I'm writing down these notes and I keep looking back at these, it's like, this game was so winnable if you could have had some saves. And look, I know some of these goals were screened. I know some of them weren't necessarily the best ones, but the fourth goal, the fifth goal, the sixth goal, and the seventh goal. I know that's a knuckle puck and it's hard to find, but sometimes you just need a save. And regardless, even if you want to blame the seventh one or not, there's still three of them right there in front of you that are just as bad. So, yeah, this one's on Petersen. And, I think I think one of those games is going to come eventually. I do not blame him for the game earlier in the season against the LA Kings, the 5-0 game, because he was kind of not really thrown into that one, but he kind of was. And he also did have a really good bounce back the next week as well. But Flyers the lead. They gave up two. It was Crosby and then Rust. It was a turnover, bad coverage in front, and then Rust would score off a deflection. There was no coverage on the stick there either. One of those things, if you tie up a stick that's not in. I didn't love the first period. They had a little amount of shots. I was curious what would happen with the back-to-back. But, again, these teams had a response, and they get one early in the second period. Forster, he scores. He had two today. He's got 3 goals in 2 games since coming back. That's been good, especially with no Konechny. He's been a guy that's kind of stepped up a little bit, and these guys like Tippett and Farabee haven't really, which is, something that the guy gets. And, again, that's just with not having Konechny. But a guy like Forster coming back and having an immediate impact, that's something you want to see. Flyers get a power play. And Frost gets high stick for 4 minutes. They did nothing with it. This game was so bad to watch compared to yesterday because it was such a boring game in some ways. And I know that sounds so stupid because there was 13 goals in this entire game. But the Flyers, the power play does score, but it's later in the game when they're down 2 goals. Like they had some other moments in this one where they could have generated a power play goal and they just could not get it. The Penguins get a power play, 3-2 Rust. You just need a save sometimes. And the Penguins, also at the same time, having a really bad power play, of course, score on the Flyers having one of a really good penalty kill. The Penguins scored 2 power play goals. This next one, Bemstrom, I mean, that just cannot go in. It's just, it can't. I mean, when you're already down 3-2, you need saves. You're struggling to generate any offense. It was very similar to the second period on Saturday against the Rangers. 4-3, Sanheim. They win the draw. Sanheim with a bullet, and it goes right past Jari. That was the one thing that was at least promising in this. Was even when they were down 2 goals, I was like, all right, well, there's still like 5-something minutes left in the second period here. They get one more. They're right back in this game. They get one, and then they get another. Scott Lawton shorthanded. I mean, this team doesn't quit, and I have said this all season long. They do not quit, and they have a response for everything that comes towards them. And unfortunately, they do lose this game, and they get no points out of this weekend, which is very unfortunate. And when you're looking at the standings, and you look at that, and with no points in these 2 games, The Devils, they lose today, but it's 5 points there. Pittsburgh gets one, so them and the Islanders both have 60. Washington with 61. New Jersey with 62, and the Flyers are still in third with 67. It does not get any easier for this team, and I'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. So Sanheim, then Lawton, we go into the third. O'Connor scores 5-4. That can't go in. That just cannot go in. I mean, it's one of those ones. I know Malkin's there, and you're kind of watching it, and you're like, all right, like that just it can't go in. And then Raquel, it's another one. I know it's a great pass from Crosby, but why is Petersen all the way down to the side of his net? He's like this. I mean, he's sitting there like this. It's like, I mean, he's all the way down here, and Raquel's shooting up this way. It's like, what are you doing? Like, I don't get it. So that one's in. It's 6-4. Cam York comes right back for the Flyers. He gets one. And then Letang scores, and it's a knuckle puck. Of course, they get one like that, right? So that one goes in, empty net. We're at 3:30. Forster would score a really nice pass from Couturier. But it's just one of those games where you needed a save, and you just didn't get it. And unfortunately, they do lose this one, 7-6. They don't have any points out of this weekend. It's really unfortunate. And with Drysdale now, that's even worse, because now Risto's hurt. Well, Risto's been hurt, but you have Ristolainen, you now have Drysdale. If that is any sort of long-term, I don't know what they're going to do at the trade deadline. Because I didn't mean to drop my phone, I apologize, but even when you go and you look at that point, it's like, you either have, if I saw something the other day that they could have been trading Sealer or Walker as a pair, or Sealer and Walker as a pair. That's 4 defensemen you'd be trading. You wouldn't have if Risto doesn't play for past the deadline, and then if Drysdale's out for a long period of time. Like, I have no idea. And York's even banged up because it was in a non-contact at practice. So, like, this is not good. And unfortunately, all the injuries are starting to pile up. Thankfully, Forrester came back, and he, again, still had an impact. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Konechny is day-to-day and all that, and hopefully that's just a minor day-to-day thing, and it stays that way, and he's back soon. That would be nice. That really would be nice if you could get Konechny back, and hopefully Drysdale isn't anything, long-term or fearful or anything like that, because if it is, oh boy, because that's not good, and especially for a guy who gets traded in the day of a Flyers-Penguins game and then gets hurt in his first ever Flyers-Penguins game in a Flyers uniform, that really sucks. So I don't know. It really does suck with the injuries, and again, Petersen. I mean, again, you can't keep riding Urson, because that's the thing. It's like, it's going to get to the point now where, because this game just kind of, it makes me really wonder what they feel with Petersen. Like, do they genuinely think that this is a guy who can come in and play, or is this literally just the only option right now? Because Sandstrom hasn't necessarily been great with Lehigh Valley, and the Phantoms have not really been good this year. So it's like, what do you really do? Like, do you stay with Petersen and do you ride Urson for most of the season? I mean, the Flyers having they have 59 games played. That's 23, I believe. Yeah, 23 games left, and you got a lot against East opponents. Again, it does not get easier. You're looking at the Flyers schedule. It's not easy. You have Tampa Bay, and that rounds out this month, and then you go into March. You have some tough games. You got Washington, Ottawa, St. Louis, Florida, Tampa, San Jose, Toronto, Boston, Toronto, Carolina, Boston, Florida, the Rangers, Montreal, Chicago. Not incredibly tough, but having Florida, Tampa, Toronto, Boston, Toronto, Carolina, Boston, Florida, and the Rangers all in a span of like maybe 3 weeks, and the only really easy game in there, and I say easy being San Jose, that's a tough stretch. But you do have some other ones that are a little easier. You got Washington, who's not a great team, and that's a very tough one with the standings right now. Ottawa, you have struggled with them this year, but I'm hoping that is a win. St. Louis, they haven't been a great team. You did beat them in St. Louis as well. You have Montreal. Chicago, who you just beat, that's later in the month. And again, they've proven they could beat Florida. They can play with Toronto. Boston was a challenge, and they've beaten Carolina. So, I don't know. I feel, a little, I think one way I'm like, all right, maybe they might have a chance, and then the other way I'm like, I don't know, because it's all those other great teams and they're injured and all that stuff. But all that stuff could change. So I don't know. I mean, they've beaten some of those teams. They've struggled against some of those teams. So we'll see. Thanks everybody again for all support as always. My name is Chris. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this one, and I will talk to you all again soon.